In section 6 of chapter 1, we're going to be subtracting real numbers. Oop. Okay, so you might say, wait a minute, didn't we just do some of that? Well, what we did in the previous section was to add unlike signed numbers, which is sort of like subtracting. Ah, okay. But we're going to take a look at subtracting because there's some very important rules that you need to follow. So we'll do that for objective 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to look at these words here too, complementary and supplementary angles. This is part of your vocabulary for our class. Well, we're going to start off real easy, and it says to subtract. Now, how do we know, in a sense, that this is subtract? Well, because of that negative sign right there. Now, notice we could rewrite this into this, negative 8 plus a negative 4. Ah, but showing it this way is another way to show it. This means this. So you're adding a negative number to this negative number. So that's just going to be a negative 12. They're both the same sign. We can think of it this way. Now this is definitely subtraction, but we can change that to addition also. So again, we're going to use the larger absolute value, which is a 18, subtract the 11, get a 7, and then apply the sign of the larger absolute value, which is negative. So this is a negative 7. Now, letter C is very critical, and watch it carefully. Now, this is a negative 10. We're asked to subtract it. Well, when you see a negative in front of a parenthesis, and there's a negative inside the parenthesis, this is often referred to as the double negative. And this could be read as the opposite of a negative. And what is the opposite of a negative? It's a positive. So whenever we see this arrangement, a negative in front of a parenthesis and then a negative inside, you can say two negatives make a positive. So this will be a negative 15 and a positive 10, which will give us a negative 5. I subtract the 10 from the 15, got 5. This is the larger absolute value, which is negative, so I apply the negative sign. And again, this is a negative. This is a negative. I can convert it to a negative 12 like so, but putting a plus in front. I went up a little high there. So I have a negative 12, and a negative 12 will give me a negative 24. Now here again, as we look at it, the opposite of a negative makes this a positive. So that will be 35. And this is the opposite of a negative. And when we subtract that, we get a positive 75. And here we're going to take the absolute value of this, which is 3.8, and subtract 1.3 and we get 2.5, but we're going to apply the sign of the larger absolute value. So here, again, looking at this, this is going to be the opposite of a negative, makes it positive. Our common denominator, 14. So we have to multiply this by 2 to make it a 14, and this by 2 to make it a 30. So we now get 39 over 14. Now, can you simplify this? I don't believe so. And no, they're leaving it like that. Now, sometimes they would want you to convert it to a mixed number. 14 goes into there like twice, and there's a remainder. You put that over 14. Okay, but they're not asking to do that. Okay, let's go on. Raise it up a little bit. Here we're asked to simplify, and again, the rules of operation apply. What do we have here? Well, this is going to be a negative 3. The opposite of a negative makes this a positive. This is a negative 5, and this is going to be a negative 2. So we can get all our negatives together and get 10, it looks like. Negative 10 and a positive 4 will give me a negative 6 for letter A. And then here it's, now a technique might be just add all of these up here. This is negative, negative, negative. That's going to be a negative 25 plus 7. And then you take 7 from 25 is 18. And you use the larger absolute value sign, which is negative there. Now this is a little tricky because of the absolute sign. So an absolute sign can be a grouping sign as well. This becomes a negative 8 in there. So that's going to come out of here as a positive 8. And we have this negative 2. Now this is tricky here. Here we have a negative 3 that is squared. What is the base here? The base is only the 3, not the negative sign. So whatever we get when we square 3, it's going to be negative, and 3 times 3 is 9. So we get here then a negative 11 plus 8 leaves us with a negative 3. And I checked all of these and they are correct. Remember, the answers are below. And most of the time they're correct, the answers. We did find one little error. All right, evaluate each expression when x is this, y is this, and z is this. So this is going to be substitution. And we said x was a negative 3, so we can just put it there like that. Now minus is in the formula, so we'll put our minus there. Now they're saying y is a negative 7. So I'm going to put this y here in a parenthesis. And you might say, why did you do that? Well, because notice what happens now. This negative of a negative 7. So there's 2 negatives. This will become a positive. So negative 3 from 7 gives us a 4. You had to be careful of that double negative there. All right, so here we have 10. And again, minus a minus will make that plus. And then our y is a negative 7 minus 2. So for letter B, we have in our numerator a 13, and in our denominator a negative 9. And we usually put the negative out there, but it could be there, remember, or you could make the top negative, but only one. So I'll make that positive because I moved the negative sign there. Now, notice these are in their absolute form. So again, write it out. The absolute value of negative 3 plus the absolute value of negative 7 minus now the absolute value of 9. We haven't used 9 yet, have we? Okay, that's okay. So this comes out as a positive 3. This comes out as a 7. Now this is going to come out as a 9, but then we have to apply that negative. So 3 plus 7 is 10, minus 9 will give us a positive 1. Now for letter D, we have x, which is a negative 3, that we're going to square. Now remember, the base is negative 3. I put it in parentheses to be sure I have the negative that's also going to be squared. So negative 3 times negative 3 makes this a 9, a positive 9, minus now a minus 7. Again, the use of the parentheses, very important. So negative of a negative, or the opposite of a negative, makes it plus. So this will be 16. And those are correct. All right, let's go on to number 4. In a game of cards, Alicia won 11 chips. So that would be like a plus 11. Loss, 6 chips. Won, 3 chips. Lost, 14 chips. And won, 1 chip. Well, remember, a win is a positive and a loss is a negative. So one way to do it is put all the positives together. We have 11 plus 3 plus 1. And we have here losses of a negative 6 and a negative 14. That's going to give me a negative 20. I could have added these up too. So we have here 15, it looks like. 14 and 1 is 15. So we have a net loss of 5, which is correct. Okay, last one now. We're going to review these terms, complementary and supplementary. Now, they refer to angles. If they're complementary, the total is 90 degrees. If they're supplementary, the total is 180 degrees. Now, you often wonder, is there a way to help me remember which is which? Because if you see the two words, you might wonder, how can I remember which is which? Well, one of the things I do is that the angles are 90 and 180. And if we put our words alphabetically, C comes before S. So this is earlier or smaller in the alphabet. This is larger or later in the alphabet. So the smaller number goes with the C. The larger number goes with the S. A little way to remember. So for number 5A, we know this is 180. So if we go 180 minus 42, that will give us this particular number here. And let's see if I can do that, sort of. This is going to be 8. This is now 7. So how about 138? So if I add these two together, I get the 180. And again, all of this is 90 minus 53. That's going to be 37, I believe, yes. You'll notice every once in a while I use that European 7. I lived in Europe a long time, so old habits. But I see people in the States are doing that every once in a while. And the reason is that in Europe, they make the ones like so. And you might say, wait a minute, that's a 7. Well, no, it doesn't have that little bar. See, we make our ones just like that. But the Europeans make their ones like that. Maybe not that exaggerated, but it's easily confused. That's why they put that little bar there to distinguish between the two. And students always, subtraction to addition is add the opposite, okay. Some students are going to change the sign. All right, we did a lot of that. And, you know, right when this is like this, all you can do, if you copy it down, just change the signs like so. And it becomes that. The opposite of a negative, or two negatives make a positive. Okay, we kept this one short too, 17 minutes.